The message came on a Tuesday morning. It arrived not through radio waves or satellites, but through a ship that appeared above Earth like a metal mountain blocking the sun. The world watched in silence as the massive vessel hung in the sky for 3 days before finally sending a single transmission. Humanity was being summoned. Ambassador Park read the message 7 times before she believed it. She was 53 years old, had served in diplomacy for 30 years, and had negotiated with the most difficult leaders on Earth. But nothing had prepared her for this. The Galactic Hegemony, a coalition of 12 alien species that ruled this part of the galaxy, wanted to meet humanity. They wanted to judge if humans were worthy of joining their great civilization. The alternative was not stated directly, but everyone understood. Rejection meant Earth would become property of the hegemony. Humanity would become slaves or worse. Assembled her team carefully. She chose Lee as her aide, a quiet man of 35 who had a gift for finding information others missed. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words carried weight. For security, she selected Shin, a former Special Forces soldier who now served as ceremonial guard for diplomatic missions. He was 42 years old, average height, with a calm face that revealed nothing of his thoughts. The journey to Prime took 3 weeks in the alien transport ship. The vessel was cold and gray, designed for species much larger than humans. The beds were too big. The doors were too tall. Everything reminded them that they were small creatures entering a world built for giants. Prime was a space station the size of a small moon. It floated in neutral space, belonging to no single species but serving as the political heart of the hegemony. When the human shuttle approached, looked out the window and felt her stomach tighten. Thousands of ships surrounded the station, each one representing a different alien civilization. Some were elegant and smooth. Others were covered in spikes and weapons. All of them were enormous. The docking bay where they landed could have held a football stadium. Alien creatures of every shape and size moved through the space, conducting business, arguing, laughing in sounds that hurt human ears. Some walked on 2 legs. Others crawled on 6 or 8. A few floated through the air on wings that shimmered with strange colors. And every single one of them stopped to stare at the humans. Walked with her head high, pretending not to notice the looks. Stayed close behind her, his eyes recording everything, his mind processing. Walked at the rear, his posture relaxed but his attention sharp. He had been in dangerous places before. He knew how to recognize threats. The whispers started immediately. Did not understand the alien languages, but she understood tone. She heard mockery. She heard amusement. She heard the sound of creatures looking at something they considered beneath them. An official met them at the entrance to the assembly hall. There were the dominant species of the hegemony, and this one stood over 3 meters tall. His body was covered in thick gray plates that looked like natural armor. His eyes were small and yellow, set deep in a face that seemed carved from stone. When he looked down at the humans, his mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "So small," he said, his voice deep and rumbling. "I expected something more impressive from the species that calls itself humanity." Kept her expression neutral. "Size is not everything," she replied. The laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "In this galaxy, little creature, size is everything. Come, the council waits. They are eager to see what Earth has sent us." The assembly hall was a circular chamber so vast that clouds actually formed near its ceiling. Seats rose in tiers around a central platform, filled with representatives from all 12 hegemony species. Counted thousands of aliens watching as her small delegation walked to the center of the room. 12 thrones sat on a raised platform before them, each one holding a council member from a different species. The largest throne belonged to council leader, even bigger than the official who had greeted them. His armor plates were from countless battles, and his eyes held the cold confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Beside him sat representatives of the other species. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms ending in claws that dripped with venom. They were covered in black scales, their eyes burning with inner fire, their minds capable of reading thoughts. They had no solid form at all, existing as clouds of sentient gas contained in special suits. Each species was terrifying in its own way. Each one was built for survival in a hostile universe. And then there were the humans. Three small figures standing alone on the platform, soft and fragile and completely out of place. Council leader leaned forward in his throne. "So these are the humans," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The species that took so long to reach the stars. The species with no claws, no armor, no venom. Tell me, Ambassador, why should the hegemony accept such weak creatures into our coalition?" Stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her voice remained steady. "The people of Earth have come in peace. We seek friendship and cooperation with all species of the hegemony. We bring knowledge, culture, and the desire to contribute to galactic civilization." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not polite laughter, but the cruel sound of thousands of voices mocking something they considered pathetic. Raised his massive hand and the laughter stopped. "Peace," he repeated. "Friendship, cooperation. These are words spoken by prey animals. Hopping predators will not eat them. The hegemony does not accept members based on pretty words. We accept only the strong." He stood from his throne and even across the distance felt the weight of his presence. There is an ancient tradition called trial by combat. If humanity wishes to join the hegemony, you must prove your worth through battle. Your champion will face our champion in the arena. Victory earns membership. Defeat means your species belongs to us. The chamber erupted in excited chatter. Aliens turned to each other, discussing the announcement, placing early bets on the outcome. Felt ice in her veins, "And if we refuse?" Smiled, showing teeth the size of human fingers. "Then we take your planet anyway. At least with you have a chance. A small chance, but still a chance." He gestured dismissively. "You have one rotation cycle to prepare. That is approximately 30 of your Earth hours. Use them wisely, little ambassador. I suggest you say goodbye to your—" More laughter filled the chamber as the human delegation was escorted out. Walked in silence, her mind racing through options that all led nowhere. Typed furiously on his, already searching for information about said nothing at all. When they reached their quarters, a small suite of rooms clearly designed for much larger beings, finally allowed herself to show fear. She sat down heavily on a chair built for creatures twice her size and buried her face in her hands. "They want us to fail," she said quietly. "This whole thing is a game to them, entertainment before conquest." Looked up from his, the rules are surprisingly detailed. No manufactured weapons allowed, only natural capabilities. Combat ends with submission or death. "Natural capabilities," repeated bitterly. "They have armor and claws and venom. We have nothing." Silence filled the room, then spoke for the first time since they had arrived. "Ambassador," he said, his voice calm and even, "I need to know what kind of fight this will be. Are there weight classes, size restrictions?" Checked his research. "No, the champion can be any member of the challenging species. Any size, any age, any background." Nodded slowly. Something changed in his eyes. It was subtle, a shift that most people would not notice, but had been reading faces her entire career. She saw something that surprised her. She saw hope. "Can you fight," she asked, "against something like that?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he answered, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "I was trained to survive," he said. "Whatever they send against me, I will find a way. That is what humans do. We find a way." Outside their window, the lights of Prime glittered like cold stars. Somewhere in that vast station, an alien champion was preparing to kill a human. And somewhere in that small room, a human was preparing to prove the entire galaxy wrong. News of the challenge spread through Prime like fire through dry grass. Within hours, Every species on the station knew that the small, soft humans had accepted trial by combat. Within a day, ships began arriving from across the sector. Everyone wanted to witness what promised to be the shortest and most amusing or in recorded history. Stood in the medical examination chamber, wearing only simple shorts, while alien physicians circled around him like predators examining wounded prey. The room was cold and filled with machines he did not recognize. Floating cameras recorded everything, broadcasting his examination to screens across the entire hegemony. The lead physician was a creature with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors depending on mood. Right now, the skin was bright orange, which had explained meant amusement. Truly remarkable, the physician said, running a scanner over his body. I have studied many species, but I have never seen one so poorly designed for survival. The results appeared on screens around the room. His bone density was marked in red, indicating weakness compared to hegemony standards. His muscle mass was labeled insufficient. His skin was noted as having no protective qualities whatsoever. No natural armor, the physician announced loudly, ensuring the cameras captured every word. The epidermis can be punctured by minimal force. No venom glands, no redundant organs. A single wound to major systems would prove fatal. He leaned close to his face, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of disbelief. How does your species survive on your planet? Do you simply hide from everything dangerous? Met the alien's eyes without flinching. We do not hide, he said calmly. We adapt. The physician laughed, his skin flickering through shades of orange and yellow. Adapt. He says they adapt. He turned to the cameras. This creature thinks adaptation can replace natural weapons. I suspect the champion will teach him otherwise. In the observation gallery above, watched with her fists clenched at her sides. Stood beside her, his clutch to his chest, his face tight with anger. This is theater, said quietly. They are not examining him, they are humiliating him. Nodded. I have been monitoring communications across the station. Betting pools have already exceeded 10 million galactic credits. The odds against are approximately 9,000 to 1. Some gambling houses are not even accepting bets on human victory because they consider it impossible. Have you learned anything useful, anything that might help? Hesitated. Maybe. The rules state that no manufactured weapons are allowed, only natural capabilities. The aliens interpret this as claws, fangs, venom, and natural armor. But I have been studying human biology and history. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I believe humans have natural capabilities that the hegemony has never considered. Before could ask what he meant, a commotion at the chamber entrance drew their attention. A massive was pushing through the crowd, followed by a swarm of cameras and admirers. He was even larger than council leader, standing nearly 3.5 meters tall, with armor plates so thick they looked like castle walls attached to a living body. The Unbroken whispered. The hegemony champion. He has won 47 consecutive trials. He has never been defeated. He has never even been seriously injured. Strode to the examination platform where Still stood. The size difference was almost comical. His head barely reached the middle of his chest. The human looked like a child standing before a mountain. Looked down at his opponent with an expression of pure contempt. This is what Earth sends against me, this soft, pink creature. He reached out with one massive hand and poked shoulder hard enough to leave a bruise. I could crush you with one hand, little human. I could tear your arms from your body like pulling petals from a flower. Did not step back. He did not show fear. He simply looked up at the towering alien and said, "Then I suppose you will try." The chamber went silent. No one had ever spoken to that way. No one had ever looked at him without fear in their eyes. His face twisted with rage. For a moment, it seemed like he would attack right there, breaking the rules of war. But then he laughed, a sound like thunder rolling through mountains. I will enjoy killing you, he said. I will make it slow. I want the whole galaxy to watch you suffer. He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. The crowd parted before him like water before a ship. That night, the human quarters received many visitors. Delegates from various species came not to offer support or strategy, but to mock the humans one final time before the fight. An ambassador arrived first, his scaled body radiating heat, his burning eyes fixed on with hungry interest. I can read your mind, human, he said. I can taste your fear. It is delicious. Sat cross-legged on the floor, his eyes closed in meditation. Then you know that I do not intend to lose. They hissed with laughter. I know that you believe that, but belief does not stop claws. Belief does not heal wounds. Tomorrow you will die believing you had a chance. That makes your death even more entertaining. After him came its gaseous form swirling inside a containment suit. We have studied your species since your radio signals first reached our sensors. You are a young race, primitive, violent with each other but helpless against true predators. Your entire history is the story of weak creatures pretending to be strong. A noble visited next, his 4 arms folded across his chest, his venomous claws gleaming under the lights. I have placed a significant bet on your death occurring within 15 seconds of the fight beginning. Please try to last at least that long. I would hate to lose money because you died too quickly. Through it all, remained silent, his breathing steady, his mind elsewhere. Handled the visitors with cold politeness, refusing to show how their words affected her. Ignored them entirely, buried in his research, cross-referencing anatomy with ancient Earth fighting techniques. When the last visitor finally left, the quarters fell into exhausted silence. The station's artificial night had begun, dimming the lights outside their windows. In less than 20 hours would enter the arena. Sat down across from him. They are trying to break you before the fight even begins, she said. They want you to walk into that arena already defeated. Opened his eyes. They were calm, almost peaceful. They do not understand humans, he said. They see our bodies and assume that is all we are. They measure strength only in muscle and armor and natural weapons. And what do you see when you look at them? Smiled slightly. I see creatures who have never needed to be clever. I see species that evolved with built-in advantages and never learned to fight without them. I see opponents who have never faced something truly dangerous. Truly dangerous, shook her head. Could kill you with a single blow. How can you call yourself dangerous? Because I know something they do not. Rose to his feet, moving with a fluid grace that seemed almost unnatural. For thousands of years, humans fought other humans. We developed hundreds of martial arts, thousands of techniques, millions of strategies for defeating opponents who were bigger, stronger, and better armed than us. We learned to use leverage instead of muscle. We learned to target weaknesses instead of attacking strengths. We learned that the soft can defeat the hard if they know how to move. He walked to the window and looked out at the lights of Prime. These aliens think combat means charging at your enemy and hitting them with your natural weapons. They have never faced an opponent who studies anatomy, who learns where the nerves cluster and where the tendons connect, who turns an enemy's strength into weakness. Looked up from his. I have completed my analysis of physiology. Their armor plates have gaps at the joints. Their nerve clusters are located beneath their arms and behind their knees. Their balance depends on keeping their weight centered. Nodded slowly, then I know where to strike. Stood and placed her hand on shoulder. The whole galaxy expects you to die tomorrow, she said. What happens if you lose? Turned to face her. In the dim light, his eyes held something ancient and unbreakable. I will not lose, he said. Not because I am stronger than, not because I am faster or tougher or more powerful. I will not lose because I refuse to lose. That is the human way, Ambassador. We endure, we adapt, we survive. And when everyone believes we should fail, we find a way to succeed anyway. He returned to his meditation position on the floor and closed his eyes. Get some rest. Tomorrow, I am going to show the galaxy what humans are really made of. Outside the window, Prime continued its endless rotation, indifferent to the small drama unfolding within its walls. Millions of aliens slept peacefully, certain they would witness a human's death in the morning. They had no idea what was coming. The arena of Prime was built to hold 100,000 spectators. On the day of the human, every seat was filled, and millions more watched through screens across the galaxy. Ships had arrived from sectors so distant that some species present had never even heard of Earth before receiving the broadcast invitation. Everyone wanted to see the soft creature die. Stood in the preparation chamber with her hands trembling despite her efforts to control them. The noise from the arena above filtered through the walls like distant thunder, a constant roar of voices speaking in 100 different languages, all united in their anticipation of bloodshed. "You do not have to do this," she said, knowing even as she spoke that the words were meaningless. "We could find another way, we could negotiate." Was stretching his body in ways that seemed almost impossible, bending and twisting with a flexibility that looked wrong on a human frame. "There is no other way," he said calmly. "They will not respect words. They only respect action. Today I will give them action they will never forget." Entered the chamber, his clutched like a shield against his chest. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "I have reviewed the rules one final time. No manufactured weapons. No outside assistance once the fight begins. Combat continues until submission or death." He paused. "There is no rule requiring you to kill your opponent." Stopped stretching and looked at the young analyst. "I know. The will expect killing. All 47 of his previous opponents died. If you defeat him without killing him," trailed off, uncertain how to finish the thought. "If I defeat him without killing him," said, "I send a message stronger than death. I show them that humans are not only capable of winning, we are capable of mercy. And mercy from a position of strength is more terrifying than cruelty could ever be." A loud chime echoed through the chamber. A guard appeared at the entrance, his face twisted with barely concealed contempt. "The human champion is summoned." The crowd grows impatient. Took a deep breath and walked toward the exit. At the doorway, he paused and looked back at it. "Whatever happens in that arena, remember why we came here. We came to show them who we are. Not victims, not prey, humans." Then he was gone, following the guard down a long corridor toward the arena floor, and made their way to the diplomatic observation platform, a raised section of seats reserved for official delegations. Around them, aliens of every species imaginable pressed together, their voices creating a wall of sound that was almost physically painful. The energy in the arena was electric, hungry, eager for violence. The arena floor was a circle of packed sand, easily 100 meters across. Ancient symbols were carved into the surrounding walls, marking this as a place of tradition and honor. But the crowd's behavior suggested neither tradition nor honor. They screamed for blood. They waved banners showing crushing tiny human figures beneath his feet. They laughed and jeered and counted down the seconds until the entertainment began. A massive gate on one side of the arena opened and emerged into the light. The crowd exploded with cheers, raised his arms in triumph, rotating slowly so every section of the audience could see him. His armor plates gleamed under the arena lights, polished to a mirror shine. His yellow eyes scanned the crowd with the confidence of a creature who had never known defeat. He was 3.5 meters of living destruction, a mountain of muscle and natural weapons. When the cheering finally died down enough for words to be heard, council leader rose from his throne in the highest section of the arena. His voice boomed through amplification systems that carried to every corner of the space. "Citizens of the hegemony, today we witness the ancient trial of worth. The young species known as humanity seeks membership in our great coalition. They have been challenged to prove their strength." He paused for dramatic effect. Representing the hegemony, our champion, the unbroken, 47 victories, 47 deaths, the greatest warrior of our generation. Another round of cheering shook the arena, raised his fists and roared, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of Prime. Continued, his tone shifting to obvious amusement, and representing humanity, their champion. The opposite gate opened. For a long moment nothing happened, then walked onto the sand. The arena fell silent, not the respectful silence of anticipation, but the confused silence of creatures trying to understand what they were seeing. Wore simple gray clothing, loose enough to allow movement, tight enough not to be grabbed easily. He carried no weapons, wore no armor. He was smaller than almost everyone in the audience, a tiny figure walking across the vast arena floor toward a monster. Then the laughter began. It started as scattered chuckles, then built into waves of hysterical amusement that crashed through the arena like storms. Aliens pointed at the human, clutching their sides, tears streaming from their various eyes. This was the creature that Earth sent to represent them, this soft, small, pathetic being. Walked steadily toward the center of the arena, ignoring the laughter as if it did not exist. When he reached the designated starting position, he stopped and faced, who stood 20 meters away, still enjoying the crowd's reaction to his opponent. Raised his hand for silence. The laughter slowly faded, replaced by eager anticipation. The rules of war are sacred and absolute. No manufactured weapons, no assistance from outside the arena. Combat continues until submission or death. Looked down at with unconcealed contempt. Human, do you have any final words? Every camera in the arena focused on. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched, waiting for the small creature to beg for mercy, to admit defeat before the fight even began. Turned and bowed deeply too, a gesture of respect that seemed to confuse everyone watching. Then he straightened and spoke in a voice that carried clearly through the arena's amplification systems. I am ready. A ripple of confused murmuring passed through the crowd. That was it. No pleading, no desperate speech, just 3 words and a bow. Stepped forward, his massive feet leaving deep impressions in the sand. I will tear you apart piece by piece, little human. I will keep you alive as long as possible so you can watch yourself die. Your species will know fear when they see what I do to you today. Said nothing. He simply stood in a relaxed posture, his arms loose at his sides, his breathing slow and steady. His eyes never left. Raised his hand high above his head. The arena fell completely silent, 100,000 beings holding their breath at once. Begin. The hand dropped, the crowd roared and charged. The champion moved faster than something his size should have been able to move. His feet churned the sand as he crossed the distance between them in heartbeats. His massive fists were raised, ready to crush the human into paste with a single blow. The arena shook with his approach, and the crowd screamed with bloodthirsty anticipation. Did not run. He did not raise his hands in defense. He simply watched approach, his body completely still, his breathing unchanged. At the last possible moment, when his fist was already swinging down toward his head, moved. It was not a dramatic leap or a desperate dodge. It was a small step, precisely calculated, that took him just outside the arc of his blow. The massive fist passed so close to his face that he felt the wind of its passage, but it touched nothing but air. His momentum carried him forward, off balance. His arm extended uselessly into empty space. The crowd fell silent. Had not attacked. He had not counterstriked. He had simply moved with a precision that seemed almost impossible and made the champion of the hegemony look clumsy. Spun around, his yellow eyes wide with surprise. This had never happened before. His opponents either tried to block his charge, which shattered their bones, or tried to run, which he always caught. No one had ever simply stepped aside as if his attack were nothing more than a gentle breeze. Lucky growled, You were lucky, but luck will not save you twice. He charged again, faster this time, his arms spread wide to catch the human no matter which way he dodged. Watched him come, and in the frozen moment before impact, something changed in his eyes. He was no longer prey waiting to die. He was something else entirely. And for the first time in 47 fights, felt a cold whisper of something he had never experienced before. Fear. Second charge was faster, more desperate, his arms spread wide like the jaws of a trap. He would catch this human, crush him against his armored chest, feel the soft bones break and the weak flesh tear. He would show the galaxy what happened to creatures who dared to embarrass him. But was not there. The human moved again, that same precise step, but this time he did not simply dodge. As massive body rushed past him, his hand shot out and struck a point beneath this extended arm, exactly where research had shown the nerve cluster was located. The effect was immediate. His right arm went limp, hanging uselessly at his side as signals from his brain failed to reach the muscles. He stumbled, thrown off balance by the sudden loss of control, and crashed into the arena wall hard enough to crack the ancient stone. The crowd went silent. No one moved, no one breathed. 100,000 aliens stared at the arena floor, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The soft human had not just dodged the greatest warrior in the hegemony, he had hurt him. Pushed himself away from the wall, his yellow eyes blazing with rage and confusion. He tried to raise his right arm and found it still unresponsive, the nerves temporarily paralyzed by the human's precise strike. "What did you do?" he roared. "What trick is this?" Stood in the center of the arena, his breathing still calm, his posture still relaxed. "No trick," he said. "Just anatomy. Every creature has weaknesses. The larger the creature, the more weaknesses they have. Humans learned this truth thousands of years ago." He began to circle slowly, his feet sliding across the sand without lifting, maintaining perfect balance. "On my planet, we developed arts of combat designed specifically for situations like this. The weak against the strong, the small against the large, the soft against the hard." His right arm began to regain feeling, tingling with painful sensation as the nerves recovered. He would not make the same mistake again. He would not let the human touch him. "You are fast," admitted. "Faster than I expected, but speed will not save you. I only need to hit you once." He attacked again, but differently this time. Instead of charging blindly, he threw calculated strikes, each one powerful enough to shatter stone. His left fist swung in a wide arc. His right, now partially recovered, followed with a stabbing motion aimed at the human's chest. Moved through the attacks like water flowing around rocks. He did not block because blocking would break his bones. He did not retreat because that would tire him faster than his larger opponent. Instead, he redirected, using the smallest possible movements to guide strikes away from his body. A fist aimed at his head became a fist that hit empty air. An arm meant to grab him became an arm that grabbed nothing. Every attack that threw was just slightly off target, missing by centimeters that might as well have been kilometers. The crowd began to murmur. This was not how or was supposed to work. The human should be dead by now. Why was he still alive? Why was the unbroken failing to land a single blow? Struck again, his hand finding another nerve cluster behind his left knee. The leg buckled, and the massive dropped to one knee with a crash that shook the arena floor. Before he could recover, was behind him, his arm wrapped around the alien's thick neck in a position that looked almost casual. "This technique is called a chokehold," explained, his voice carrying through the arena's amplification systems. "It restricts blood flow to the brain. Even the largest creature needs blood to think. Cut off that blood and consciousness fades within seconds." Thrashed wildly, trying to grab the human clinging to his back, but was positioned perfectly, using his own body as a shield against his grasping hands. Every time reached back, shifted slightly, always staying in the blind spot, always maintaining the pressure on his neck. Impossible, breathed from his throne. Around him, the other council members leaned forward, their expressions ranging from disbelief to something approaching fear. His movements began to slow. His massive body swayed, struggling to stay upright on one functional leg. His reaching hands grew weaker, less coordinated. The lack of blood to his brain was taking effect, just as had promised. But was not called the Unbroken for nothing. With a desperate surge of willpower, he threw himself backward, slamming into the arena floor with the human trapped beneath him. The impact drove the air from his lungs and sent shockwaves of pain through his entire body. The crowd roared with renewed excitement. Finally, the human would die. Finally, the natural order would be restored. Felt ribs crack under the weight of the massive alien. His vision blurred with pain, and for a moment he could not breathe, could not move, could not think. Rolled aside and staggered to his feet, blood vessels in his eyes burst from the pressure of the chokehold, his face twisted with animal fury. "Now you die," snarled, raising his foot to crush the fallen human. But was already moving. Despite the cracked ribs, despite the pain that screamed through his body, he rolled aside just as foot crashed down. The impact left a crater in the arena floor where his head had been moments before. Rose to his feet. His movement was slower now, more careful. Each breath sent fire through his damaged chest, but his eyes were still calm. His focus was still absolute. "Humans have a word," he said, his voice tight with pain. "Persistence. It means continuing even when everything tells you to stop, even when your body breaks, even when victory seems impossible." He smiled slightly. "We are very good at persistence." Attacked again, but his movements were sluggish from the earlier chokehold, his coordination affected by the oxygen deprivation. Could see the desperation in the champion's eyes, the growing realization that something was terribly wrong. The human continued his precise attacks, targeting joint gaps and nerve clusters, never striking hard enough to cause permanent damage but always causing pain, always causing weakness. He moved around like a shadow, never staying in one place long enough to be caught, always appearing where the least expected. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the greatest warrior of their generation was slowly, methodically dismantled by a creature they had dismissed as prey. After 10 minutes that felt like hours, could barely stand. Both his arms hung uselessly at his sides. His legs trembled with exhaustion. His breath came in ragged gasps, and his yellow eyes were clouded with pain and confusion. Circled behind him one final time. With movements that looked almost gentle, he took back again, wrapped his arms around the massive neck and squeezed. This time had no strength left to resist. His body swayed, then slowly, impossibly, the unbroken champion began to fall. Rode him down, maintaining the chokehold with absolute precision, applying exactly enough pressure to render unconscious but not enough to kill. When's body finally went limp, when the last tension left the massive muscles, released his grip, and carefully lowered the champion's head to the sand. Then he stood. The arena was absolutely silent. 100,000 aliens stared at the impossible scene before them. The Unbroken lay unconscious on the arena floor, defeated by a creature half his size with no natural weapons. Turned to face council leader. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead. His ribs ached with every breath, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Is alive," he said. "I could have killed him many times during our fight. I chose not to. Humanity does not need to kill to prove its strength." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We came here seeking friendship, not conquest. We came here to join your civilization, not to destroy your champions. But we will not be treated as prey, we will not be mocked, and we will not be conquered." From the diplomatic observation platform, Park stood slowly. Her voice rang out across the silent arena, carrying centuries of diplomatic training in every word. Humanity requests membership in the galactic hegemony. According to the ancient traditions of Or, our champion has proven our worth through combat. She looked directly at, her gaze unwavering. Do we need another demonstration? The council leader sat frozen on his throne. In all his centuries of life, he had never seen anything like what had just occurred. A soft, weaponless creature had defeated the greatest warrior in the hegemony without taking a single life. Slowly, one by one, the council members began to rise from their seats. Their faces showed shock, confusion, and something new, something that looked almost like respect. In the arena below, medical teams rushed to attend to unconscious form. And standing alone in the center of the sand, battered and bleeding but unbroken, waited for the galaxy's answer. 1 week after the Or challenge, the Galactic Assembly Hall was filled once again. But this time, no one was laughing. No one was placing bets on human death. The 12 council members sat in their thrones with expressions that ranged from thoughtful to troubled, and every representative in the gallery watched the human delegation with new eyes. Park stood at the central platform, the same spot where she had first faced mockery and contempt. Beside her, Lee held his with quiet confidence, his research having proven more valuable than any weapon. And behind them, wearing formal Earth attire that covered bandages wrapped around his cracked ribs, stood Shin. Council leader rose from his throne. His voice, when he spoke, lacked the contempt it had carried before. The council has deliberated, he announced. In accordance with the sacred traditions of Or, humanity has proven its worth through trial by combat. The vote was unanimous. He paused, as if the next words were difficult to speak. Earth is hereby granted full membership in the galactic hegemony. Polite applause rippled through the assembly hall. It was not the enthusiastic celebration that greeted most new members, but it was not the hostile silence the humans had faced before. It was something new, something uncertain. Bowed her head in acknowledgement. On behalf of Earth and all its people, I accept this honor. Humanity looks forward to contributing to the hegemony and learning from all the great civilizations gathered here. As the formal ceremony continued, noticed delegates from various species watching with unusual intensity. Where before they had looked at humans with amusement and disdain, now they looked with curiosity and something approaching caution. The soft creatures were not what they had seemed. After the ceremony concluded, the human delegation was surrounded by aliens seeking their attention. Ambassadors who had mocked them days earlier now offered formal greetings. Scientists requested interviews about human physiology. Military advisors asked careful questions about human combat techniques. A general approached directly, his 4 arms clasped behind his back in a gesture of respect. I have commanded armies for 300 of your Earth years, he said. I thought I understood combat. After watching your fight I realize I understood nothing. He hesitated, his skin shifting to colors that indicated genuine curiosity. Would you teach us? The techniques you used, the way you moved, the strategy behind your attacks. Considered the request carefully. Human martial arts are not secrets, he said. They were developed over thousands of years by countless teachers who wanted to help the weak defend themselves against the strong. If you wish to learn, I am sure Earth would be willing to send instructors. Word spread quickly. Within days, official requests arrived from 7 different hegemony species, all asking for human combat instructors. But the requests did not stop at fighting techniques. Suddenly, the galaxy wanted to understand everything about the creatures who had hidden such capability behind such apparent weakness. Philosophers from the asked about human ethical systems. How did a species decide when to kill and when to show mercy? Researchers from the wanted to study human psychology. What drove such fragile beings to develop such sophisticated survival strategies? Military academies across the hegemony requested human strategic consultants. If humans had found ways for the weak to defeat the strong, what other secrets might they possess? Found himself offered positions at 3 different alien universities. His research methodology, his ability to find crucial information in mountains of data, was suddenly considered valuable beyond measure. The quiet analyst who had been dismissed as another weak human was now treated as a scholar of rare insight. Spent her days negotiating trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The contempt she had faced was replaced by cautious respect. Other ambassadors no longer talked down to her but engaged as equals. Earth was no longer a primitive backwater to be conquered. It was a mystery to be understood. But the most unexpected development came from himself. The champion had recovered from his defeat after 2 days in medical care. The physical damage was minor, easily healed by advanced alien medicine. The damage to his reputation was more complicated. For the first time in his long career, he had lost. For the first time, he had been forced to confront the limits of his own strength. He found in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "You did not kill me," said, his deep voice quiet, almost uncertain. "You could have. Many times during our fight you had opportunities to end my life. Why did you choose mercy?" Turned to face the massive alien. The size difference was still dramatic, but something had changed between them. The power dynamic had shifted. "Because killing you would have proven nothing," replied. "The hegemony expected me to die. If I had killed you, they would have dismissed it as luck or trickery or desperation. But by defeating you without taking your life, I showed them something they had never considered. I showed them that humans are not just capable of winning, we are capable of choice." Was silent for a long moment. In culture, being defeated creates a debt. The beaten owes a service to the victor. This is our oldest law. He straightened to his full height. "I owe you such a debt. How may I repay it?" Considered this carefully. Through the window, the lights of Prime glittered like scattered jewels. Ships from 100 worlds drifted past, carrying beings who had spent their lives believing that strength meant size and power meant destruction. "Teach your people," finally said. "Teach them that strength is not just about crushing those weaker than you. Teach them that true power comes from knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. Teach them that the universe is bigger than they imagined, and that the creatures they dismissed as weak might have lessons to share." Nodded slowly. "This is a strange request, but I understand it." He paused. "The humans are a strange species. Small, soft, breakable, yet somehow you defeated me. Perhaps there is wisdom in that strangeness." He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing through the observation deck. But at the doorway, he stopped and looked back. "For what it is worth," he said, "I am glad you did not kill me. I think I have much to learn." Then he was gone. 3 days later, the human delegation prepared to depart Prime. Their shuttle waited in the docking bay, surrounded by a crowd of aliens who had come to see them off. The mockery and laughter that had greeted their arrival was gone, replaced by something more complicated. Stood at the shuttle entrance, looking out at the gathered crowd. Diplomats, scientists, warriors, and common citizens of a dozen species had come to watch the humans leave. Their expressions were thoughtful, curious, perhaps even hopeful. "They still do not fully understand us," observed, standing beside her. "They know we are more than they assumed, but they do not know what we truly are." "That is fine," replied. "We have time to show them. That is what today earned us, time." Joined them, moving carefully to protect his still healing ribs. He looked out at the crowd and saw something that made him smile slightly. Near the back, almost hidden among the larger aliens, stood a group of young, watching the humans with expressions of open fascination rather than contempt. "They laughed at us when we arrived," said quietly. "They were so certain we were weak, so certain we would fail." "They did not understand," said. "They measured strength by what they could see, armor, claws, venom. They never imagined that real strength might be invisible." Nodded. "Human history is full of moments like this. Moments when we were underestimated. Moments when we were dismissed as too small, too weak, too fragile. And yet here we are, still surviving, still adapting, still proving everyone wrong. Smiled and stepped onto the shuttle. "Let's go home," she said. "We have good news to deliver." As the shuttle lifted off and passed through the docking bay shields into open space, looked back at Prime one last time. The massive station grew smaller in the window, but its significance had grown larger than ever. Humanity had come to the stars expecting to find wonders and dangers beyond imagination. They had found both, but they had also found something else, something unexpected. They had found respect. Not the easy respect given to the strong, but the harder respect earned by those who refuse to accept their limitations. The respect given to creatures who turn weakness into strength, who find advantage in disadvantage, who survive not by being the biggest or the most powerful, but by being the most determined. The galactic hegemony had laughed at humanity's weakness. They would never make that mistake again. And somewhere in the infinite depths of space, as the human shuttle began its long journey home, closed his eyes and allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had come so far. They had proven so much. But this was only the beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same. The soft creatures from Earth were here to stay. And they were just getting started.